Hi guys, welcome to biology class. Come on in, take your assigned seat. I have two questions on the screen for you guys to work on right away. I'll give you 2 to 3 minutes to complete these. Okay guys, your 3 minutes is up. We should be wrapping up these do nows. We're just gonna dive right into today's lesson about water. If you haven't figured it out, dive in. No pun intended there. So what we're going to look at is water as a molecule. We're going to look at how water behaves and what makes it really essential to biology in general and our biology. It's a pretty, not to be biased, I think water can be pretty fascinating. I know you guys are just like, water's water, but hopefully once we unlock and unpack today's lesson, you guys will be like pretty amazed by all the things that water can do for us. So let's dive right into it. Question number 1 of the do now was, what is one thing you already know about water besides the fact that you can drink it? I'm looking for something with a little bit more thought. Adam? Awesome. So Adam said water is also called H2O, which is absolutely correct. Adam, do you happen to know what that stands for or what that means? You don't, no problem. Okay. We're going to go into that in just a little bit. Can I get one more volunteer though for question number 1? How about Brian? Thank you. Yeah, we need to drink water to survive. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so for question number 2, what do you think Mickey Mouse has to do with today's lesson? A little bit more abstract, but who has a thought? Guys, I saw everyone writing in their notebooks. Question number 2. Stephanie, thank you. Okay, so Mickey is a mouse and mice need water to live. So kind of along the same lines as Brian. Again, completely correct, but let's wait and see. Okay, before we dive into the lesson, we're going to talk about our objectives. So what I want you guys to walk away knowing. We're going to know the molecular structure of water, basically what water looks like as a molecule. We're going to define the term polar covalent molecule. Big word, but we'll get into it. Don't worry. We're going to understand the phenomenon that is hydrogen bonding. We're going to identify 3 key properties of water that make it super important for life here on Earth. That's made possible due to this hydrogen bonding. And then we're going to be able to really dive into what they mean. So that is cohesion, adhesion. That's solid state of water is less dense than the liquid state of water. Now, thinking back to our lesson about matter, which I know you guys went over, and just basic chemistry, you should read that sentence and think something's wrong. We should be a little bit skeptical of that sentence from what we have already learned about matter. So I just want you guys to be on guard for that, because we're going to go into that a little bit more. And we're going to look at water as the quote unquote universal solvent. So let's first start off by asking ourselves, why is it important? Why do we need to even have this lesson today? Well, it's what we're made of. Kind of like Brian was saying, it's essential for us. Well, it's because we're made of water. We're 60 to 70% water as adult humans. Up to 95% of plants could be water based on the species, of course, that's dependent. And 71% of the earth is water. And I like this little guy because it's a quick visual to be like, wow, that's how much water we are. It's a lot of water. Okay. As far as biology and in this course, water is going to come up a lot. So we're going to go on to study a lot of different processes where you're going to see water involved. Some important ones are listed below. Photosynthesis. So this basically means that plants need water in order to make food. We can see how that's pretty essential, right? It's a buffer for pH. So basically, if something's too acidic or too basic, we'll add water to neutralize it, quote unquote, to get it right in the middle of that pH scale. You might not really know too much about this yet, but again, when we explore this in later lessons, this will make sense. And water carries oxygen and nutrients to cells. Now for this one, do we just drink water and then all of a sudden nutrients and oxygen are going to be transported into our cells? Or does water have to take on a different form in order to do this? I'm seeing a lot of like, I don't know, don't call on me. Okay, let's think. Let's look at your wrist. Do you guys see veins? Ah, it's clicking, it's clicking. Brittany. Awesome, perfect. So blood is actually 95% water. So blood will carry oxygen and nutrients to our cells, but it's basically water, or it's 95% water. So without drinking water, our body couldn't make blood, and then we wouldn't get oxygen and nutrients. So you can think of it as a little train where it's carrying nutrients and oxygen, and its destination is the cells. So section 1 is our first section of this PowerPoint. Lecture, notes, whatever you want to call this. And we're going to look at those first 3 objectives. Chemistry is fun, okay? It's a little bit chem heavy, but nothing we can't handle. And you guys are super capable. You got this. It looks intimidating, but bear with me. We're going to break it down. Okay, first things first. Molecular structure of water. What is it made from? Mr. Adam over here told us that water is also called H2O, which is absolutely correct. But what does that stand for? What does the H stand for? What does the O stand for? Sarah, I feel like the wheels are turning, but just go for it. Just guess. They are elements. Awesome. Do you know which ones? Just hydrogen and oxygen. Nailed it. Perfect. Water is made from 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom when they are bonded together. And like Adam said, molecular formula, H2O. Now, what does a water molecule look like? Can we close our eyes and envision a water molecule? Yeah, probably not, right? You guys have never seen a water molecule. You need a really high-powered microscope to see an individual water molecule. But it looks like Mickey Mouse, okay? So that was question number 2 of the do now, of course. Our water molecule looks like Mickey Mouse. This is an actual picture or diagram of a water molecule. So we see our center oxygen, and then our 2 Mickey ears, quote unquote, are 2 hydrogens kind of branching off. Okay, so this is just something I like to remember when I'm remembering the structure of water or how it looks. Another note I like to make is that you can see this flipped. So you'll see the hydrogen on the bottom and oxygen on the top. Either way is correct. Okay, so it's just like a flipped Mickey Mouse head. Okay, now let's get into water as a polar covalent molecule. This is a big word. It's very intimidating, I know, but we're going to break it down. Okay, let's start with polar. What does it mean that a molecule is polar? It means that it has poles. Poles just means one positive end and one negative end. So here we have our flipped Mickey head, and we have our hydrogens here on the bottom, and this pole is highlighted in blue. Okay, so the hydrogen end has a slight positive charge to it, and this is because hydrogen doesn't attract those electrons as well as oxygen does. Okay, so it creates a slight positive charge on this end of the water molecule. On the flip side of this, we have oxygen, which is highlighted in red. This pole is highlighted in red, and it has a slight negative charge. And this is because oxygen does a better job at attracting those electrons and that negative charge than hydrogen does. Okay, and I like this little cartoon because it's fun, but it also is really represents this concept well. So we have hydrogen as our small little white ball, and our oxygen as this mean red ball. And so what's happening here is oxygen has a stronger grasp on those electrons. And by doing it, by having that stronger grasp, it's taking more of that negative charge, resulting in a slightly negative charge. Okay. and hydrogen then has a slightly positive charge. This makes sense? We live? Head nods, no, yes. Okay. Now we're going to go on to the second word, covalent. What does covalent mean? Covalent just describes intramolecular bonds by which atoms share electron. So intramolecular just means inside a molecule. So we're talking about the specific atoms that make up a molecule, how they're bonded to one another to make that solid unit, that water molecule. So let's look at this diagram over here. So we see that each hydrogen, hydrogen 1, hydrogen 2, both share an electron pair with oxygen. Okay, so what happens is each atom in a water molecule donates one electron to this pair. So hydrogen donates one electron, its only electron, to the pairing, and oxygen donates one of its 8 electrons to the pairing. In doing this, now these two atoms share electrons. They share 2 electrons. That is a super, super strong bond, okay? They're bonded for life, okay? They're not coming apart, not in anything that you would ever study in this class. They're not coming apart. So this happens at 2 locations where both ears attach, right? By the attaching of these hydrogens. Okay? Is this good? Hydrogen, oxygen share a bond. Okay? They share an electron pair that makes a bond. Okay? Let's breathe. That was a lot. Okay. Polar, covalent. We kind of dug into them a little bit. Who can tell me, give me a recap of what polar means? Katie, thank you. Okay, so polar means there's 2 sides to a molecule. We're like halfway there. What is distinct about those 2 sides? They're charged. Great. Okay. So polar means that a molecule has 2 poles, meaning one is slightly positive or positive and one is slightly negative or negative. In water's case, oxygen is, we say, slightly positive and hydrogen is oxygen is slightly negative and hydrogen's slightly positive. That's polar. Okay, who can define covalent? Colin, thank you. Awesome, 2 atoms share electrons, perfect. So when 2 atoms share an electron pair and they each donate 1 electron to that pairing, that creates a bond and that creates a really strong molecule. Okay, so we see those right there. And that gives us water. Okay, so that wasn't super scary, right? We got polar down, we got covalent down. Okay, so now what happens, we looked at how a single water molecule is bonded, or the atoms in a single water molecule are bonded to create a molecule. But what happens if I want to bond one Mickey Mouse head to another Mickey Mouse head? So I want to bind water molecules with each other to create actual water. You know, we have to do this millions of times in order to get visible water. How do those 2 molecules, or those millions of molecules, I should say, attach to each other? Anyone? Any guesses? Okay, let's dive into it then. Something called a hydrogen bond. Okay, so this is an intermolecular bond that connects one water molecule to another water molecule. Intermolecular bond means between molecules, not inside of a molecule. Okay, so we're connecting one molecule, one really solid unit, to another really solid unit. So let's look at this diagram first.